I would say that a medium is not really part of Taoism. Like I have to be very clear about it. It's more of like a folklore thing. Like in terms of like maybe in other countries, you get that kind of like witchcraft, you get medium, you get like channeling of spirits and with the higher beings, like using our body as a vessel to carry out tasks.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Open House, where every conversation opens a new perspective. I'm your host, 𝙗𝙗. Today, we have a very interesting guest joining us. He is Mr. Briano Sim, who is the co-founder of Floral Story International. And he's also had a calling as a Tang Ki. A Tang Ki who is also known as a Chinese spirit medium. Welcome to Open House, Briano.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here and making time. Yes. I'm excited to have you today and learn more about this interesting journey that you have been on. Before we even get into this particular journey, I just wanted to ask you one question. Right? You can be very honest with us. Okay? You can be very honest. If you feel it, you feel it. If you don't, you don't, right? Okay. Do you feel as a Tang Ki there's any presence here right now with us?
I don't think there is any presence, but I felt like very peaceful when I come in, especially when I see like a deity statue right in front of your door. Okay. And I think the colors of the office plays a big part also because it's very woody, it's very clean design. So I think it's very comfortable. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's great to hear.
Yes. Congrats.
Thank you so much for your. So that's the first thing we wanted to ask you because, very often like when you walk into any space, there's a certain energy that you feel. So I think that energy works differently for us who's like, where we don't have that calling and maybe you feel it differently. So we were just curious and we wanted to
I felt fine and even until now I'm comfortable.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that endorsement. We are all very happy now. Okay. Now, Briano, we wanted to get into this journey of yours. So we'll start off with your your personal life and etc. Right? Now, it's very interesting because first and foremost, when you think of a Chinese medium like a Tang Ki, you often think of someone, like someone in the 80s and 90s where, they may not be working and, being a medium is like their full-time job. But here you are, you're a co-founder at Floral Story International and you're also a Tang Ki. So maybe if you could, share a little bit about at what age, did you realize this calling and, how did you first realize that, that you had this calling in you? Like, what was it? Like, was it a physical calling? Was it a dream?
I started out at like 17, 18, that age. Back then I was working as well while schooling. I was like looking forward to like traveling, heading to Japan, to station there, to work, so on and so forth. Yeah, a lot of dreams, All in all, I didn't step into any Taoism temple way before that because my auntie, she got scammed by a medium before when I was really young. So I tend to have like a no to heading to Taoism temple and all. Back then I was practicing Buddhism. Yeah, so I was like quite a staunch Buddhist, in a way. And I don't really step in Taoism temple till I encounter this temple. Then I realized that, hey, it's not actually about the deities. It's not about Taoism, but it's more to like the people or human being that is supposed to carry out this task might be at certain, point of time, like might be at fault or what. So after that, I start to put away all these negative thoughts. And then I was curious back then. So I was like asking like, will it really happen like to be a medium, that kind of thing. A deity from my first temple actually sort of advised me that a certain date my duty will start. There's a night whereby suddenly I start to be a bit dizzy and then suddenly I sort of like lost conscious and then that's when I start to have this encounter. Because thereafter, like I think one of the wake of my relative yeah, I spotted out some relative that I haven't been contacting. So they sort of mentioned to my parents that actually in the kampong days, right, like in a massive scale, my ancestor, I would say, they actually pray to Thunder God. Yeah, which is who I trance with. Yeah, that is all in all. Like, I believe that it's always like a destiny. Yes.
So when you realized that, okay, this is your calling, how did you feel? Did you feel like, maybe I don't want to do it? You know, did you feel reluctant, or did you feel like, wow, I have to do this? You know, like not everyone might accept it, right? So how did you deal with the whole situation?
The start, I was pretty confused because I was like being curious at first. So I didn't feel that form of rejection. Yeah, it's just that as time passed by, the commitment and of course the activities that we might have to carry out in terms of like weekends and all, right? I can't really go out with my friends because back in the days it was like, you know, we have clubs, right?
Yes,
so
yeah.
I was like, people ask me like, oh, do you want to go club? No, it's either you are working or like, you know, and for me to say that, oh, I'm going to, in layman term, 跳档, then I need to explain a lot. Then people will be like saying all the wrong thing or like offensive stuff. To be honest, when I started out, until now, I get a lot of nasty things, a lot of nasty words and all. I guess you will get used to it some point of time in your life lah.
Now, what does a Tang Ki actually do? Like personally, sometimes, you know, we get confused, I think, between a priest and a Tang Ki. So maybe if you could explain, what does a Tang Ki do and what are some of the challenges that you have faced along the way?
I would say that a medium is not really part of Taoism. Like, I have to be very clear about it. It's more of like a folklore thing. Like in terms of like maybe in other countries, you know, you get that kind of like witchcraft, you get medium, you get like channeling of spirits and with the higher beings, like using our body as a vessel to carry out tasks. And as much as I see over the years, like different kind of mediums, right? Like how they carry out their trance and all. I always believe that there are different modes, to put it in a layman term. Like some of the friends, like they always ask me, like, hey, the person is so awake. Like, do you think like really there's deity, like, you know, being in the body, right? So I always tell them that we are not here to judge. But to be honest, right, sometimes it's the reading that they give, right, is very, very accurate. So you can't say, no, there's no deity. It's just different mode of trance, I would say so. So to be more in-depth, like probably I'm someone that don't want to know anything at all. So I prefer like a 100% mode, like to just put myself away. Yeah. And there are some medium whereby they can be sober and yet they can give advices to people.
When you say 100% away, that means you're completely not present there.
Yeah,
as you as Briano.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Now, how do you actually experience a connection like with the spiritual world? I mean, is it hard? Like for me as a layperson, I'm not the most religious person. Neither am I. I'm maybe a skeptic when it comes to all this. So I don't feel connected to the spiritual world on a daily basis, maybe, right? But how do you feel like on a daily basis? Do you feel connected to the spiritual? And how do you do that? Like as a Tang Ki, like in that moment, how does that process happen?
I will only connect with the spiritual world when, let's say I need to, like for example, serving my duties at the temple, and in terms of like emergency, whereby if I see somebody injured on the street or whatever, so like how can I help? So that one I will really try to do it subtly lah. But in the temple, yeah, I mean, like everybody know we are trying to connect, right?
Right.
So that's when we will just perform our duty.
Do you also see other spirits aside to the deities?
I would say sometimes lah. So for me, it's like when I feel like maybe some days whereby I'm really shitty or what so, right? It just happened that you might encounter, you might be able to see them. Yeah, but I believe that sort of we coexist lah. So everywhere, right, there is their presence one. It's not like just in cemetery or wherever.
Right. No.
Yeah.
So now going into your role as a Tang Ki, who is the specific deity that usually you channel and what does it feel like, if you can recall, or probably after that, how do you feel like when the deity comes in?
So for me personally, like the deity that I trance for the heavenly realm is Thunder God. So he's also like housed in most Taoism temple as a protector, like divine generous. He also serves like not just the weather duties, and of course he's known to protect people from harm and perhaps like to prevent, like people from having some obstacle in life, Back in the olden days, I think a lot of people, whereby farmers, they actually pray to him because if let's say you have the worst storm ever, right, then your crops can't be harvested. But in modern society, we don't have that much. We still have crops, but then Singapore is literally like progressing to have like a lot of technology stuff. That is for my heavenly deity. And then for the other side, we call it the underworld. We pronounce him as 𝙤𝙚𝙚𝙧𝙚. That is like a more commonly known deity in the Chinese medium circle. Quite a lot of people trance after him. And some people often ask like, how come like this temple have this 𝙤𝙚𝙚 and then the other person is translating 𝙤𝙚𝙚, then how come like they speak differently or like right? That is always the question that people want to ask. But then I always feel that they are like police. In English term is like constable. Yeah. So you will become a police with that rank. So obviously like, we can be colleagues. Yeah, like you can be 𝙤𝙚𝙚, I can be 𝙤𝙚𝙚 also. We don't behave like in a similar manner because like we have different personality as well. And that is what I believe in.
I see.
Yeah, that's to my personal point of view to debunk like how come like different, they behave differently. And then Singapore, so many 𝙤𝙚𝙚 translating at the same time, but they speak differently.
They speak differently.
Yeah,
Sometimes they speak different languages.
Yes, exactly.
Like maybe you're Hokkien, but you can speak Teochew suddenly.
Yes.
And has that happened to you? I think it has, right?
Yeah. So for Lei Gong, like the thunder god, he speak in a manner whereby it's quite difficult to understand because it's like a bit of Hokkien mix, his own language. Yeah. So for 𝙤𝙚𝙚 wise, it's more towards kind of like the olden days of Hokkien. Yeah, that's what they describe to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of deities, right? So you mentioned that you have the 𝙤𝙚𝙚 and then Thunder God as well, right?
Yes.
Because you're like what we would say is someone like a spiritual person, right? So how do you know that the deity in you is that deity and not something else?
Okay, when we take the license, right, sometimes you have speak to the higher being that I will be translating this particular deity already. So-called like your body is sort of like reserved for that particular deity. So you won't be confused, that kind of thing. Like
I see.
There's multiple deities coming in and this and that, right? Unless like sometimes we have special occasion in the temple, then maybe some other deities might come into our body, kind of thing. Yeah, but the regular one that is doing consultation will be that two deity that
you always embody.
Yes.
So do you undergo any like special training or things like that?
There is no training. Like even people now, like sometimes after some video being published, they ask whether, hey, can you teach me, that kind of thing. Then I was like, no, I can't teach you. There's no way to teach. It's just by natural but then I can advise on some things that what I have been through. I can share my stories, but I don't think I'm fit to teach like the trance kind of like how it is going to be and this and that. Usually I'll ask them to like, why not you consult the deities? Yeah. I would say that it's more towards the support from the other medium, like those medium that I know who are more senior. Then I'll go and ask them like, hey, what are the things to take note? Like maybe you can share your stories when you first started out, same thing as what I'm doing now. So I'm thankful also I have like quite a handful of very nice mentors, senior medium, that kind of thing. And I always feel that even I met some not so nice people, right? But then we learn lessons from them as well. So that will empower us to walk a journey whereby though we might not be perfect, but we stay away from walking towards the darker side. I would say so.
Right. And what do you mean by the darker side, like walking to it?
Okay, it's just like I'm being granted for so many interviews, right? If I treat every interview as like I'm getting more and more fame, I'm using all this for myself, and that is, I would say, walking to the darker side already.
Right.
Yeah. But if let's say I regard all this as a form of like, I really want to help somebody that's struggling out there. Of course, every interview have their different platform showing to different type of people, and some people through fate might have encountered certain form of interviews of mine or other medium, then it might help the person by chance. Yeah, as long as we are not into greed, like have a lot of like self-gain, that kind of thing. Yeah, we just stay true as much as possible.
Right. And it must be hard because I think doing what you do, people expect you to be selfless and they expect you to be very connected spiritually.
Correct.
They also forget, would you say sometimes that you're actually a human being on a day-to-day basis?
I would say that will be the challenging part because it's just like you are visiting a hospital and you expect like all nurses to speak to you in a way that, hey, are you feeling okay? But you never know that that nurse or doctor today might have something unfortunate happen to the person like during his day or in his morning, that kind of thing. And he just need to be that perfect to you. There's some period whereby, yes, when we are facing the devotees, it's always about a medium should behave this way. He cannot scold people. He cannot be angry. He cannot do vulgarities, right? But I think we are still human beings, and I just be myself so that I wouldn't have to struggle with all these things.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever had like devotees where maybe things that you shared didn't work out the way that they wanted to, and have they been angry with the situation? And how do you deal with that?
Okay, so far, based on what the helpers have like shared with me, is Deity is always leaving you with the decision. I mean, from what my deities have done for people is they will provide advices, but they won't do that kind of like fear thing that to say that, hey, you know, this thing is going to happen to you.
If you don't do this.
Yeah. So they will just tell you that, oh, okay, perhaps you should save some money for like maybe 3 months later.
Like hint.
Like, yeah, that kind of thing. But then they will provide that comfort at the same time, that advice. But ultimately, they are not here to control your life or your thoughts. That means you are free to make your own decision.
Free will.
Yeah, that's when we trust that it's a deity because you won't have that fear. Basically, you are troubled. That's why you actually proceed on to ask the deity, right? I think that is why some people don't go for fortune telling as well, right? Or perhaps like we as human beings, we are always afraid to face reality. Right? For sure, yeah.
Once you get into a trance, do you feel any changes after, like physically or emotionally, after you're out of the trance?
Okay, for heavenly deities, I do feel more tired. For the underworld deities, I think I'm fine, all good. After that, maybe I think at most I might feel hungry or what. So, but that's very normal because, you know, like it's sort of like depleting our human physical energy, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned that once you go into a trance, right? So where does your soul go to? And
I would say, if you ask me, right,
like,
to be very frank, right,
yeah.
It's just a coma. Because some medium, I believe they might, they mentioned that they will go to this heaven realm.
Like the soul leaves the body like that.
Whatever. Yeah. So, but for me personally, I need to be honest, I don't get all these things. Yeah, I'm not going to lie and say that I entered a fairyland. Yeah, I just like, let's be real. Yeah,
right,
for me, but it doesn't mean that the other medium are lying. They probably have gone to somewhere, but that's for me at least. I don't go to anywhere. Yeah.
So it's really like you're in a comatose state. Like your being is there, everything is still there. It's just that you're in a different moment.
Just like in coma, then the next moment you wake up probably. Yeah.
Right.
That's why when you wake up, right, and you see people that you are familiar with around you, right, you feel relief because you see familiar faces, your supportive friends, we call them like table head, which is like the helpers. So I guess that's life also, to teach me during every consultation that maybe as a human being, you might be afraid at times, but when things pass on, you will still feel the warmth of people around you. So that's why, tracing back the question, like, is it difficult? Have I thought of giving it up? That kind of thing. I would say, yes, I might have that thought, like, why not I just leave everything and travel, like go to some country to stay, right? And escape from all these things instead of committing every week. Right? So sometimes there are things that make us try to give up. Whether like, you know, like should I still continue to be a medium, that kind of thing. I mean, some of friends know that my grandfather actually passed away, you know, with a suicide like 3 years ago. Yeah. And another moment, like 2 of my grannies are in hospital and then I still have to go into trance. Right? So there are these moments whereby we feel that, you know, why is it me? Like, why am I a medium but I still get this kind of thing? Of course, there are many why and how, like why the deity didn't prevent my grandfather from doing that at such an old age, which is so unexpected. But another point would be to teach us a lesson that probably like we should understand the elderly more. Like we can't take some people who are really strong for granted, because my grandfather is really very strong.
Really sorry to hear.
Hey, no worries. Yeah.
And I mean, just out of curiosity, if you don't mind me asking, did you anticipate that? Like that might have happened with your granddad?
My grandfather.
Like, did you feel something that was coming?
So for that, right, I had a dream before that he did that. I suppose so. But I didn't share with anybody because it's really like impossible. But like I say, I've come to terms that whatever happened will still happen.
But now if I were to ask you, do you feel maybe angry with yourself? Do you regret not verbalizing that?
I won't feel angry because maybe when I first started to be a medium, right, I might be angry at myself or even at the deity at times, like how come some people cannot be saved, right? But for this spiritual aspect, we might believe that we all have our own destiny. We all have our own, maybe I would say, layman term karma, right? So as long as we dedicate our time and commitment to do, what is our like at our best, right? Then that will work probably. Yeah.
Right. Now, coming to another question is, we as skeptics, they always say that, hey, you are a medium.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can see things and, help yourself, for example, like, hey, I'm sure you can see 4D numbers and, go and buy 4D and you can become wealthy, or you can do things, because when you're a medium, you're doing things to help others, right?
Yes.
So do people ask you for like, have you helped?
There is, but then the deities will always say that if let's say they open a particular number for people, right, it's really to help those that are struggling inside. And if let's say they strike the number or what so, right, they can do some charity or what. So it's not to encourage like for somebody to really go into gambling and this and that.
When you say struggling inside, what do you mean?
Struggling inside as in like some people, they appear to be like all blessed and happy going to the temple, right? But maybe deep down they are still struggling with their finances or this and that. They might need that sum of money, right? But it's not to make it into a habitual kind of thing. Yeah, so that's what we were being taught. So we shouldn't immerse ourselves into all these things. Yeah.
So as a medium, right, like, are you able to sense evil in that sense?
Occasionally. I cannot say no, but then, so how I spot, like, referring back to the question, like, evil vibes will be when I feel that somebody is very manipulative, like say that, I feel that, you should do this. Maybe last time when I just started out a medium, I would say yes to certain things. I will just follow, right? Because I'm still new, right? So as time passed by, I would say a very firm no. I'll say like, no, I'm not allowed to do this. It's against what I feel is right for the community. For me personally, is I am answerable to my bosses. Yeah. So anything, either I ask my brother to consult or my helpers to consult them to get the answer before I make any personal decision. If I find that it's just not right to do certain things.
Even though they are shared by your so-called mentors.
Yeah, especially like to benefit some particular group of people. Because I always refer back to why I want to be a medium in the first place. Yeah, it's really to help people as much as possible. And gradually I learn to be more firm as I age.
Right. Yeah. Now, Briano, we have something interesting, that questions that our audiences actually asked us as well. Okay. So I'm going to just pull out some questions for you.
Tang Ki Scammers. Okay, I think a lot of time I have been replying to this question. Okay. Just like the earlier experiences just now, right? I mentioned that my grandfather committed suicide and both of my grandmother are in hospital and I still need to trance. So if we are scammer, right? Like for what? I don't take any money. So I would for sure like rush to visit my own granny and see how is she, right? And of course, I would probably not make my whole family do all this stuff, and we can't have like weekly gathering at my granny place. Maybe I would have more time with my grandfather and my grandmother, and maybe things would have been better, right? So if it's a scam, right, it's too much of a scam to my life. Yes. It's like I am scamming myself also.
Yeah. So it's too much of a commitment for it to be
I won't be angry seeing this and say that, why not you try, that kind of not very good kind of reply. But I always feel that people does have that curiosity, and being a skeptic is perfectly fine. Yeah, right? I mean, sometimes I am also a skeptic for certain things, right? So I think we should be more open-minded and to hear what other people have to say.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to let you pick the next one.
Can. Let me try.
Can.
Okay. Okay, so next one would be, can you predict your future? No. I can only build on my future. Yeah. I don't think I can predict my future. If not, maybe I won't be struggling with some things as well. But I would say that intuition to do certain things, maybe there is sometimes the higher being will lead us to meet certain people, to do certain tasks that is like hey, you know, like I'm thankful that I actually did this. That is what they probably have guided us. I think same throughout for other faith. Yeah, so be it like you are Christians, you are Hindu, you're Muslim or what. So like, you know, as long as you follow your own faith, I guess you will be fine. Yeah, so that's the answer.
Alright, so the
I would
next
say
one.
from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like I can't predict that I'm here today. Can you see the deities? If yes, how do they look like? Okay, so sometimes we do get dreams lah. But to see like
in person?
Like in person, not that I know of lah. Not for me maybe. Yeah. Maybe I haven't reached that stage. But maybe some medium is possible. Right? So how they look like. In my dreams one, I can't describe. Yeah, like I can't really describe their face. So they always say like it's a secret lah. It's a heavenly secret. And for me, like seeing it's not really that important to me because it's just like human being, right? Like if you see your mother, you see your father, you see your family members every day, but it doesn't mean that you will listen to them and treat them good. Even if let's say the deities they let us see like they are here in front of you, it doesn't mean that you will listen to them. You will still argue to say that, hey, I have my own life and I want to be myself, right? I guess it's from the deities' explanation is they still respect our own human realm, right? So we have our way to live as normal as we should. Yeah. So that's my answer.
Okay, so the next one.
Do you think you will go to heaven? This is very interesting. I never really get this before. I don't think I'll go to heaven.
Why?
Okay, in Buddhism, right? There's this Western paradise, right? But from the scriptures, right, there are many things to adhere by. But of course, we still believe like, you know, you just do your best and you might go to heaven, right? To be honest, after all these religious studies and being a medium, in my 20s and 30s, I start to see, hey, in Singapore, there are really a lot of people with really very difficult situation. Then from our work as social media progress, we start to see that, hey, there are so many people having this kind of problem, this and that, right? So after seeing all these situations, be it in temple, in real life basis, I feel that going to heaven is not really that important. I will be very frank. I just feel that it's just treating other people right that is important, rather than you feel that you are going to heaven straight and you are abusing everybody around you. Yeah.
Like so, doing things like...
Yeah, just for faith.
Just and for like, faith.
Yeah, right? Like
to humanity.
Probably one example, if I feel that, oh, today I don't go to work, I just serve God in a temple and I lie to my clients to say that I am busy because I need to go to temple and I believe that I'll go to heaven, but then I won't go to heaven. I only get like my clients telling me that, hey, no, I'm not going to give you this project. Then you have money problem. Then how can you go to heaven when you have so much trouble in your mind, right? So I guess that going to heaven is always that moment. Yeah, when you're happy, like you feel blessed. Yeah, that's heaven. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my point of view. Okay, one more, last one. Can you feel spirits all the time? Okay, after I have some interview, I did receive some DM. To be honest, it's not laughing, but then I feel a bit confused. Like people think that I'm really like a Superman. Like, wow, I can drive away spirit. I can invoke the deity, and I can do it everywhere. That kind of thing. Personally, I don't practice that kind of thinking to drive away spirit. Yeah, because I always believe that we coexist. And compassion is the key. Yeah, like some spirits, they are the residents. So we are the one that invade their space. Yeah, it's just like this office is yours. And right, and then I tell you like, hey, can you please go? Like, I want to stay here because I'm a human being. So I just feel that that's not right. And whether I can feel it all the time, not really. Yeah, because...
But you do feel it like sometimes. Like when you go into a hospital, for example.
Hospital? I mean...
Because you know hospitals, you have birth and death.
Yes.
You know someone who's going to go maybe.
I guess it's like it got to do with as you matured also. like you feel things differently. Like maybe when I was younger, I always feel like, oh, it's very scary. Like this place is very scary. Then like, or maybe I will like chant my boss name. Like I like, hey, can you help me? Like it's very scary, that kind of thing. But as I age, right, I start to feel the reality of this world. That The more scary thing is maybe like, are you able to complete your tasks, your day-to-day life thing?
Human life.
Yeah, human thinking, human thoughts. And also, I think a lot, like 90% is on human aspects. Maybe 10% on the spirit world.
Yeah. It sounds like, you're saying like the human world is more complicated and scarier.
Of course, there are good one.
Yeah.
Like we learn to see the good, right? So, spirits, I think same thing. Like maybe you just imagine that you have a lot of good spirits around you helping you with everything. Then maybe you might be happier.
Right.
Yeah. So no, I can't feel spirits all the time. Yeah.
All right. Thank you,
question.
Briano. But
Yes.
I have a couple of questions for you before we end this. Now, how did your family react when they found out that you were doing this? Were they supportive or were they critical and like, did they feel like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Okay, I think it started out with how my family members know was when I was back home. Then, I really left that first temple because it doesn't really align with the values that I feel is right. Yeah, that's when like there's this Chinese New Year festive eve whereby we are supposed to pray, like Chinese will pray to Jade Emperor, right? So I was like all dressed up, ready to go out. And then I was preparing the altar, like to help my mama before I go out, actually. Yeah. Then suddenly, like, there comes my boss sound. Then I was like, oh shit. I don't know how. But he was very persistent on entering.
This is at your house?
Yeah.
Oh.
So my mother sort of expected it. Yeah, like being a mother. Then my dad, he can't really take it. Yeah, my dad is someone he can't accept new changes. It took him a while to accept that. Then my family members, they actually adapt to it over time. And I think we think it as a positive thing. Yeah, together.
Right. Now, okay, thank you so much, Briano,
Thank you.
for your time. Now, before we, end the conversation, like what advice do you have for someone who wants to be a Tang Ki?
Okay.
Wants to follow
so
in your
besides that, also today I brought something lah.
Oh yes,
so
yes.
This is something significant to me, at least like special. Though it's to many is like a red packet, ang pao packet only, right? But this is with his seal, and it's written here lah to keep until winter year end, before Christmas, to take things out, then burn away this red packet, right? This is usually given to us during blessing ceremony when the year started, like during Chinese New Year time. To me, it's like always a reminder to persevere on. Maybe when I want to give up on some things, whereby obstacle is too many, maybe in certain months. So all these are constant reminder that we can pull through. So inside, sometimes might have amulet, sometimes might not have. And this is actually like a $2 note. Of course, this is from the temple community. They wrap it inside. And then there's this crystal, this steel. Yeah. So this is like a crystal inside. It might be just simple things to some people, but to us, it is a representation of our faith, our calling, I would say so, and him doting on us, just like a grandfather doting on the grandchildren. Like he's always there for us. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that it's a lot of magical thing that we focus on. Yeah, but it's more of like the belief. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Can I take a look at it?
Yeah, sure. This is a stamp.
Right. So this is the seal you're saying.
Yeah. I believe he will give you all some form of present in another way. Yeah, maybe not in physical form, but maybe hopefully this episode can.
Wow, thank you so much for that.
1 million views, enough?
Wow, I really hope
Okay.
so. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I also hope that y'all will grow together.
Thank you
will
so
grow
much
together.
for that. I really appreciate it. That's a very nice thing that you said. Two nice things. You said our office is very
But
good. Yeah.
that's what I feel.
Yeah.
I guess like sometimes it's also about reassuring. Yeah, I think that's the comfort that we can provide people with as well. Yeah. So back to trancing and
what advice do you have
as a Tang Ki, right? I always feel that doing this mediumship is not just a job. Sometimes it can be a lifeline support for some people, but we need to be logical and practical. Like our temple does put up counseling helpline because we do get a fair share of people suffering from mental health problem as well. So we need to be practical that we are living in a society with all these
real problem.
Real life things that is happening to people, and we really need to solve them by science, by medical side. So not just spiritual aspect. Yeah. So that's why we have the counseling helpline. So that even without trance session, when some people feel that, hey, I mean, you never know, right? Like if let's say party A feel that, oh, it's my end of my life, and then I want to go walk into a temple to pray. And after prayer, the person might want to end his or her own life. But maybe when seeing this counseling hotline, the person call and then it might help to save a life, right? So that's what we are trying to advocate also, like to be kinder to one another instead of just believing in more is more to our own self. I guess what I've learned is not say to be super holy that, oh, I give my life to everybody in this world. Like, I mean, that's very fake. Yeah, but it's just doing our best, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Briano. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
And really explaining. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I was a bit of a skeptic when I first entered the conversation. But I think from what you've shared, you shed some light on the work that you do as a Tang Ki and as a medium.
Still learning and improving as well every day. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much
for
being here. And to our listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning into this episode of Open House. Always remember that for every question that you have, there's always someone with the answers. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might benefit from this episode. You can also follow us more on our socials for updates. Thank you. Bye.